Imagine being on your trail run and then seeing this.
This footage was recorded by a worker employed by Pemex, one of Mexico's largest industrial companies, during an ordinary shift near the town of Sebadilla. He was going about his work when something in the distance caught his attention, something that did not belong in the landscape he had looked at countless times before. He raised his camera and began recording. At the top of a tall tree, standing completely upright against the sky, was a figure. It had the shape and silhouette of a woman. It was not sitting. It was not crouching. It was standing, at the very top of the tree, in a way that no person should be able to stand. The worker was visibly shaken, but he kept the camera steady long enough to capture what he was seeing. The figure barely moved. It simply stood there, on high above the ground, with a stillness that felt less like stillness and more like waiting. There was no wind strong enough to explain its balance. There was no structure, no platform, nothing visible beneath it that could support a human body at that height. Sebadilla is a small town, but it carries a long reputation for strange and unexplained events. Locals who have lived there for years say that sightings of this kind are not entirely uncommon in that area, and that the land itself seems to hold something that resists ordinary explanation. The worker eventually lowered his camera and moved away from the spot. The figure remained where it was unmoving, unbothered, still standing at the top of that tree as the distance between them grew. The footage was shared online and drew attention from people who had no easy answer to offer. No investigation followed. No official explanation was given. The tree stood in the same place it always had, in a town that had seen things like this before and would likely see them again. If you had been standing in that field during your shift and looked up to find a figure watching silently from the top of a tree, would you have stayed to keep recording? The image came from a lone traveler hiking along a remote trail, a path that a camper passing through the same area had once described as deeply isolated, with dense forest pressing in from every direction. At some point along the trail, at eye level, and positioned directly facing the path, something had been attached to a tree. It was deliberately arranged, and nothing about it felt natural or accidental. The structure was built entirely from animal bones, carefully placed in a way that felt immediately threatening, like a warning that had been left there specifically for whoever came next. The precision of its placement made it impossible to dismiss. It wasn't scattered or fallen. It was assembled, and it was meant to be seen. Yet not every discovery like this points directly to danger. Some researchers and investigators have noted that similar displays occasionally trace back to macabre art individuals who use found bones and natural remains to create symbolic expressions deep in the wilderness, arrangements built from personal ritual or artistic intent rather than any desire to cause harm. But knowing that changes very little when you are standing alone on a trail, far from any help, staring at something you cannot explain. The identity of whoever placed it there remains unknown. The reason behind it remains unknown. And that uncertainty is what lingers long after the image fades from your screen. If you found something like that watching over the trail in silence, would you keep walking, or would you turn back? This footage comes from a Ring doorbell camera mounted outside a private home. recording the front yard through the darkness of an ordinary night. The camera captures everything clearly: the stillness of the grass, the shadows along the edges of the yard, the quiet that belongs to late hours in a residential neighborhood. Then, without any warning or sound, a pale white shape appears in the center of the frame. It is translucent, soft at the edges, and unmistakably large, nothing like the small specks of dust that sometimes drift close to a lens. This was something different entirely. The figure has a human-like height and stays low, hovering just above the surface of the grass. It does not walk, it does not step. It moves slowly and smoothly from the left side of the yard toward the right, gliding across the open space in complete silence. Its form is misty but deliberate, holding its shape as it travels, unlike any insect or airborne particle the camera had ever recorded on previous nights. There is a stillness to the way it moves, unhurried, unbothered, as if it belongs there, more than anything else in the frame. It crosses the yard without pausing, and eventually fades quietly into the dark shadows at the far edge of the property. The camera continues recording. The yard returns to stillness. Nothing else moves for the remainder of the night. The homeowner reviewed the footage the following morning and found no explanation for what had passed through. No weather event, no equipment fault, no visitor. Just an empty yard, a running camera, and something pale that came and went without a sound. If that camera belonged to your home, and you watched this footage alone late at night, would you feel safe stepping outside? Before we go any further, I'd like to ask you for a quick favor. If you are enjoying the video so far, please give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time. We're getting closer to 30,000 subscribers, and once we hit that milestone, a few lucky subscribers will receive a special surprise. Now let's go back to the video. This footage was captured late at night and shared online by someone who had been standing outside when the stillness of the evening was broken by a faint, slow sound. The wind was almost completely absent that night. The leaves were motionless. The surrounding area was quiet in the way that deep nighttime hours often are not peaceful, but empty. Then came the sound of branches, barely audible, like something brushing slowly against wood. The person holding the camera looked up and pointed the lens toward the tree above. What appeared in the frame was a white figure, motionless and tall, positioned high among the dark branches. It did not move. It made no sound. It stood between the branches the way something stands when it is not concerned about being seen. Still, upright and fully present. The camera remained on it for several seconds, and during those seconds, the figure did not shift, did not sway, and showed no response to the light or the person below. There was a quality to its stillness that felt less like an object at rest, and more like something that was fully aware and simply choosing not to move. The branches around it were dark and bare. Nothing else was up there. When the camera shifted slightly, the figure was still in the same position. It had not moved during the entire time the lens was on it. The person recording did not speak. The night remained silent around them both. The footage ended without resolution. No closer look, no explanation, no follow-up from anyone who might have climbed up to investigate. Just a white shape, high in the branches, on a night when the wind had stopped and the leaves had gone completely still. It was quiet and overcast, the kind of morning where the light barely reaches the forest floor. Somewhere along the deeper stretch of the trail, her dog suddenly stopped and refused to move forward. The woman looked up from the path to see what had caused it. What she saw between the trees was a full human-shaped figure, hovering silently just above the ground. It was pale, still, and attached to nothing she could see.
Imagine being on your trail run and then seeing this.
It drifted gently in the quiet air, as if it had been there long before she arrived and had no interest in her presence. She slowly backed away and did not return to that trail for several weeks. When she finally went back, she stopped at the same spot and saw it again and recorded it. Just trees, silence, and the memory of something shaped like a person floating quietly in the morning air. If you were walking alone that morning and your dog suddenly stopped, would you have looked up? Trail camera placed deep in the woods was suddenly triggered. A camper staying in the area had mentioned how unusually quiet the forest tends to be at that hour. No wind, no movement, nothing to disturb the stillness. So when the user later reviewed the footage, he wasn't expecting to find anything worth a second look. But something near a tree in the frame immediately gave him pause. A strange shape was visible just beside the tree, subtly different from the surrounding darkness, slightly out of place against the natural background. He couldn't immediately identify it, and that uncertainty was enough to push him to share the image online. The post gained attention quickly. Viewers began offering explanations. Some argued it was simply a tree stump, natural forest growth, or an odd arrangement of branches caught in the camera's flash. Others pointed to pareidolia, the well-documented tendency of the human mind to find familiar shapes within random patterns, particularly in darkness. A few commenters suggested he return to the same spot in daylight and take a comparison photograph to settle the debate. But one question stayed with him long after the thread went quiet. If that shape was nothing more than part of the tree, if it was only wood and shadow and the mind playing tricks, then what exactly walked through those woods that night and triggered the camera in the first place? The image came from a Ring doorbell camera installed at a home situated along the Appalachian Trail in North Carolina, a region surrounded by dense forest and very little nearby activity. A camper passing through that same stretch of trail had once described how unnervingly quiet and isolated the area feels once darkness sets in. At first glance, the photograph appeared completely ordinary, just another routine doorbell capture from a quiet night. But the longer you studied the frame, the more something felt wrong. Near the entrance of the home, a small upright figure could be seen standing in a position that didn't clearly match any recognizable shape or form. The user described it as resembling a little person, though its exact outline remained difficult to define. Without any motion to reference, the still image left far too much open to interpretation, making it nearly impossible to determine what was truly standing there. As the image spread across the platform, viewers began offering explanations. Some suggested it could be an animal caught mid-movement, a cat, a bird, or small wildlife distorted by the camera's exposure. But without video footage, there was no way to confirm how it moved, how tall it actually stood, or where it came from. If something appeared that close to your front door in the dead of night and no explanation ever came, would you feel safe staying inside? It began with a man hiking deep inside a national forest, well beyond any marked trail, the kind of place where, as a camper exploring the same region once noted, there are no signs of other people, and the silence feels total. Moving through the dense woodland, the hiker came across something he had no reason to expect: a small, man-made cabin sitting quietly among the trees. It looked abandoned. It looked forgotten. And yet something about it felt deeply out of place. What he found inside made the unease immediate. A hole had been cut into the floor, unpacked with sandbags and covered in flies. Around the exterior of the structure, makeshift arrangements of bottles had been placed, with clear intention positioned to produce noise if disturbed, as though designed to alert someone of an approaching visitor. But the most deeply troubling discovery waited outside. On a nearby tree, objects had been nailed directly into the bark photographs of people: belt buckles, bottle caps, keychains, and rings, all arranged with a deliberateness that felt less like decoration and far more like a collection. Someone had been gathering these things. Someone had been keeping them. No one was found at the site. No explanation was left behind. After the hiker shared his discovery online, the response was nearly unanimous: leave and do not return. Whatever that cabin was built for, it was not built to be stumbled upon by a stranger passing through. If you found yourself standing in front of a place like that, hidden where no one was ever supposed to look, would you stay to understand it, or walk away without ever looking back? The woman sharing a disturbing experience from an evening walk in a quiet forest. A camper staying nearby had also noticed how empty the area had become that evening. For months, she had seen the same man sitting on the same bench almost every day. He never spoke, never interacted, and simply stared ahead. At first, it felt unsettling, but nothing more. That evening, as she walked past the bench, the man stood up moments later and began following her. Sensing something was wrong, she turned around and walked back the way she came, but the man stopped, turned, and followed her again. Realizing the situation was serious, she sat down on a bench and kept pepper spray hidden in her hand. The man walked past her and sat on another bench nearby, remaining within view. She quietly opened her phone camera and noticed his behavior change in a way that made the situation even more disturbing. When he realized he was being recorded, he quickly tried to hide, returned to the bench, adjusted himself, and then walked away. Shaken, she ran and contacted forest guards, but even after searching, the man was never found. The experience stayed with her long after. If someone watched you in silence for days, would you ignore it or trust your instincts? With a photo taken back in 2020 that was recently rediscovered, the person who captured it doesn't remember why the photo was taken in the first place. A camper visiting the home at the time had also taken a few random pictures, adding to the confusion. At first, the image seemed ordinary, with nothing immediately standing out. But when he showed the photo to his girlfriend, her reaction was immediate. In the image, just above a chair, a strange face appeared to be watching. What made it more unsettling was the location. It was her childhood home, a place filled with familiar memories. The person who shared the photo admitted he did not believe in anything paranormal, yet something about the image felt difficult to ignore. He later shared it online, asking others for their opinions. Some suggested it could be burnt wood or damaged material reflecting sunlight in an unusual way. It might have been nothing more than a trick of light and texture. Still, the image left an uneasy feeling behind. If you saw a face like that in a place you once called home, would you try to explain it or quietly look away? With a Reddit user who shared an experience after witnessing the brown mountain lights from Wise Man's View in North Carolina. A camper standing nearby had also been watching the vast darkness stretch beyond the viewpoint. Below them was a steep cliff, and beyond it, miles of dense wilderness disappearing into the night. The area felt quiet and distant, with no visible signs of human activity. According to the user, more than 15 bright lights suddenly appeared across the mountainside. They seemed to hover and move in areas where no roads are known to exist. The sight was unusual, especially given the isolation of the region. Reports of these lights go back over a century, with some of the earliest accounts dating to around 1910, and many witnesses have described similar glowing movements in the same area. Over the years, different explanations have been suggested, including natural causes like geological or mineral-related activity. Still, no single explanation has ever been universally accepted. The lights continue to appear without warning, leaving those who see them searching for answers. If you stood there in the dark and watched those lights move across the mountains, would you try to explain them or simply watch in silence? After a group of campers shared footage from a trail camera they had placed in Dry Fork Canyon, One of the cameras was placed only a few feet from their tent. At around 3:50 in the morning, while the entire camp was asleep, the camera suddenly activated. The figure that stepped into view appeared strangely human, but something about it didn't feel right. It moved upright near the camera, its shape pale and unfamiliar against the darkness of the trees. The movement was slow and deliberate, almost cautious, as if it knew the camera was there. For a brief moment, it lingered in front of the lens before continuing past the campsite and fading into the shadows of the forest. The campers later said the location sits only about 30 miles from the mysterious Skinwalker Ranch, a place long connected with unexplained sightings. When they reviewed the footage the next day, the quiet night suddenly felt much less peaceful. Whether it was a person, something unknown, or something that simply didn't want to be seen. The camera never recorded it again, but knowing something passed only a few feet from their tent while they slept raises an unsettling thought. If your trail camera caught something like that outside your camp at 3:50 a.m., would you go back there again?
While hiking through a remote wooded area in Mexico, a man came across something he never expected to find.
Somehow, you're not surprised. You always knew this world wasn't the only one. You always had a faint premonition that there was an expanded reality hidden right around the corner, a doorway left open to another world.
Tucked seamlessly into the landscape was a massive structure designed to blend in perfectly with its surroundings. From the outside, it looked like nothing more than a small mountain, but inside, it was hollow. The interior was reinforced with thick wooden frames and packed with carefully stacked wooden blocks, suggesting deliberate construction rather than a natural formation. Later, the man shared what he had been told about the discovery. According to local accounts, the structure was allegedly built in 1978, uncovered in 1984, and possibly connected to secret cult activity or covert operations. Yet none of these claims has ever been proven. There are no official records, no confirmed explanations, and no evidence tying the structure to any known group or organization. All that's truly known is this: someone went to great lengths to hide it, and to this day it's real. Purpose remains a mystery. It started as a carefree night outdoors with friends, the kind filled with laughter and spontaneous ideas. At one point, they decided to take a few timed photos using a phone tucked inside a mailbox, positioning themselves across the street near a quiet cornfield. 2 photos were snapped just seconds apart. At first glance, everything seemed normal, but later, while scrolling through the images, they noticed something that made their stomachs drop. The first photo looked exactly as expected. The second, however, showed something standing behind one of them, something that hadn't been there moments earlier. No one remembered seeing anything at the time. There were no sounds, no movement, no reason to feel uneasy. To get a clearer look, the second image was adjusted using simple brightness and contrast edits, making the shape even harder to ignore. To this day, the group can't explain what appeared in that photo. Was it something paranormal silently, watching from the darkness? Or could it have been nothing more than an insect or object passing dangerously close to the lens at just the wrong moment? They eventually shared the images online, hoping someone, anyone, could help explain what they captured that night. While hiking through the Appalachian Mountains, a group of men stumbled upon something that instantly set their nerves on edge. Hidden beneath a layer of fallen leaves was a narrow hole in the ground, easy to miss, yet wide enough for a human leg to slip straight through. Uneasy but curious, they decided to see how deep it went. They lowered a long stick into the darkness and watched as it kept falling and falling until it vanished completely. It was a haunting reminder that in dense forests like these, deadly hazards can lie perfectly concealed, and a single careless step could send someone into a place where they'd never be found. While hiking through a snow-covered mountain range, a woman suddenly witnessed a scene she could hardly believe. High above her, a lone skier appeared at the very peak, dropping in and slicing through the steep face below. What started as an incredible sight quickly turned heart-stopping. One wrong move at that height could have meant disaster, and the tension of the moment was impossible to ignore. Thankfully, it was later confirmed that the skier made it down safely. Descending a line this dangerous demands absolute precision, years of experience and elite-level skill, something only the most highly trained athletes would ever dare to attempt. While hiking through icy mountain trails, a group came face to face with a yogi, something they knew was possible, yet still astonishing. He sat in deep meditation, unmoved by the freezing wind or the snow piling on his body, completely absorbed and still. Some yogis train in extreme conditions to strengthen discipline, resilience, and mastery over physical discomfort, aiming for profound inner calm, regardless of their surroundings. But it raises one question: how safe is this practice really? While hiking in a remote part of southern Utah, a woman snapped a photo of her husband as he photographed the scenery. The image looked normal at first, but later, something strange stood out. A glowing, unfamiliar shape appeared in the frame, even though no light like that was visible at the time. Confused, they shared the photo online, wondering if it could be something mysterious. After closer inspection, Reddit users quickly offered a grounded explanation: a lens flare caused by strong sunlight reflecting inside the phone's camera. Breathtaking. These hikers chose one of the most terrifying trails imaginable. They climbed along a cliffside where a single misstep meant dropping thousands of feet into nothingness. The view was breathtaking, endless sky, sweeping mountains, but the danger was real. Every step they took clung to the edge of disaster: the wind, the height, the narrow path. Everything about it screamed, "Don't do this." Nature can be stunning, but no scenery is worth gambling with your life. So here's the real question: would you ever dare to hike a place where one slip could be your last? In 2017, Alex Honnold achieved one of the most daring feats in climbing history by free soloing El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. With no ropes, no harness, and zero protection, he climbed the 2,900-foot granite wall via the freerider route in under 4 hours. The ascent demanded flawless precision, strength, and nerves of steel, and became the first recorded free solo of El Capitan, widely regarded as one of the greatest athletic achievements of all time. One night, alone in his cabin deep in the Appalachian mountains, a man had a chilling experience. Outside his window, a full pack of wolves stood in the snow, howling into the darkness. But something felt off. The wolves didn't sound aggressive, they sounded afraid, as if reacting to something unseen nearby.
Yo, they over there wildin'. Crazy.
Nothing ever stepped out of the shadows, and the night passed quietly. Still, one question lingers. What was lurking in the Appalachian Mountains that night? A couple chose a cave known as the Throat of the Dead for their wedding photos. When they reviewed the pictures later, they noticed a figure standing in the background, someone who hadn't been there. Digging deeper, they learned the cave's dark history.
Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, what is that?
In the 19th century, a man was found dead inside, seated against the wall, fingernails torn, eyes locked wide in terror. He hadn't tried to escape. Locals called him the Watcher. Legend says anyone who speaks a vow of love inside the cave will see him, silent, unmoving. He appears in only one frame, never before or after. Those who notice him are chosen. Some disappear. Sometimes it's the photographer, sometimes the newlyweds. The couple didn't know the legend that day, but a year later, the nightmares began, and life was never the same after that photo. Someone was taking a casual stroll through the woods near their home when they came across something unsettling, a strange little structure tucked between the trees. Stepping closer, they realized exactly what they were looking at: a witch's hut. They snapped a few photos and posted them online, and the comments exploded with warnings. Don't touch anything. Don't take anything. But the damage was already done. Something inside had already been picked up. Disturbing a place like that is never a good idea, Yet the uploader didn't seem bothered. They were only curious about who set everything up, and what their intentions might have been. In 2009, a daring expedition set out to explore Mount Etna, Europe's largest and most active stratovolcano on Sicily's eastern coast. As the group hiked closer to an active zone, glowing lava began erupting just meters away. Without warning, molten rock rained down and struck dangerously close. Instinct took over.
Oh man, this is just the most beautiful thing you can ever see.
They sprinted for safety, escaping just in time. Remarkably, no one was hurt. But the question remains, would you ever dare to get this close to a living volcano? A couple hiking through a remote forest, somewhere they'd never been before, noticed something unusual in the distance. They began recording as a large dark figure moved effortlessly through thick vegetation. At first, they assumed it was a bear, but after a few tense seconds, fear took over. They turned and ran. The footage cuts off abruptly. What happened next is unknown. That uncertainty has led many to question the authenticity of the recording, but the truth is we may never find out. A hiker spotted something she'd never seen before, a plane's exhaust trail cutting across the sky, then suddenly stopping mid-air. From that exact point, a long, dark shadow stretched sharply across the mountains below, perfectly straight, like it had been drawn with a ruler.
Okay, my whole life I've never seen this. This is a shadow on the mountain from the exhaust from that plane. That's insane.
How could an exhaust trail cast such a precise shadow, and why did it end so abruptly? Some say it's just a trick of sunlight and angles. Others aren't so sure. So, what are we really seeing here? This video was shared by a Reddit user, and it's one wild moment you wouldn't want to experience yourself. While driving through the mountain trails in their van, they suddenly spotted a wild yak charging straight toward them with full force. The massive animal kept coming, pounding the ground with every step, and it didn't look like it was planning to stop anytime soon. You could feel the tension as the van kept moving forward, the driver trying to stay calm while the yak refused to back down. Imagine being trapped in a free mountain ruin with nowhere to run to, and a huge wild animal coming right at you. What would you do at that moment? Would you keep driving forward or try to escape in reverse? That was definitely one terrifying encounter they won't forget anytime soon. While exploring a remote part of the Appalachian Mountains, a woman suddenly felt like she wasn't alone. As she filmed the quiet scenery, an unexplained sound was captured on camera.
It warmed you up, you know, I'm fucking cold. Felt like there was somebody behind me, but...
Something she didn't notice at the time. The deeper she went, the stronger the feeling of being watched became.
So this It's as close as I'm going to get. But y'all can see it's like angled and it goes into the mountain. It doesn't look like it, but it's a little bit more deeper here. My feet would get wet, and these shoes, yeah, no, and it's cold. But yeah, I'm about to head out of here.
Trusting her instincts, she turned back and left. To this day, she still doesn't know who or what was out there with her. In 2021, a lone backpacker trekking near an abandoned quarry in the Balkans noticed something unsettling in the water below. The surface suddenly erupted. Violent splashes rippled outward, churning the water as if something massive was moving just beneath. The camera captures the disturbance clearly, but whatever caused it never fully reveals itself. The sheer force and scale of the movement suggest a creature far larger than anything expected in such a place. With no other witnesses and no further footage, the true source of the disturbance remains a mystery, unidentified and unexplained. A woman, filming in Mexico, had her camera pointed at a tree that had been struck by lightning and was now burning fiercely. As the flames climbed through the branches, something strange appeared.
Hola, chécale a ver si se mueve. Ponle, acércale.
Sí, sí se mueve.
Pero se mueve.
Pero no está quemada, está intacta.
Esta tampoco se mueve.
Está sentada ahí.
Mira, ahí está sentada. Tenía tantos años que no veía algo así, fíjate. Hasta ahorita que los niños lo vieron.
A shape began to form inside the fire, tall, still, and unmistakably human, as if someone were standing within the blaze itself. When the footage surfaced, reactions were instant and divided. Some were convinced it was a witch trapped in the flames. Others dismissed it as nothing more than an eerie trick of light and shadow. No one could say for sure what it was, but the unsettling part was this. Whatever appeared in that fire looked far too human to ignore. A truck driver pulled over on a deserted road in Finland. As soon as he stepped out of his truck, a chilling cry rang out from the frozen forest. It didn't sound like any animal he recognized. With the road empty and no one in sight, he started recording. To this day, no one has been able to explain what he captured. In another unsettling moment, two girls were walking along a quiet beach when they noticed something truly disturbing and began filming. From a distance, it looked like a gigantic spider, something that absolutely should not exist.
Yeah, what are you? That looks like a gigantic spider.
The clip quickly spread online, sparking fear and wild theories. Eventually, many identified it as a spider crab. These massive crabs live in coastal waters, often around places like Australia. They're harmless to humans, but when you stumble upon something that looks like a giant spider crawling toward you, logic is the last thing on your mind. A group of hikers trekking through a remote stretch of desert in Arizona's Sonoran National Monument stumbled upon something that stopped them cold. Embedded in the side of a massive rock was a metal lock, rusted, deliberate, and completely out of place, as if it were sealing off something hidden beneath the ground. They captured the discovery on video and posted it online, and within hours, the internet erupted with theories. Was it a forgotten bunker, a sealed mine, or something not meant to be found at all? What could possibly be locked away behind it? On October 26, 2013, near Lake Tacony in East Texas, a group of people were inside a house when something strange happened. Their cat suddenly bolted, scattering through the room as if something outside had terrified them.
Well, we were sitting around hanging out and watching TV, and cats were laying right here at my feet. Next thing you know, they get up and take off running, tails puffed out, so heard something they didn't like. Been some strange sounds. Heard a few bangs on the house, so they heard something they didn't like, so went outside and check it out.
They had already been hearing unexplained noises, heavy bangs striking the house coming from different directions. Uneasy but curious, they stepped outside to investigate. That's when the atmosphere changed. The dogs nearby began barking wildly. A light was switched on, cutting through the darkness, but instead of comfort, it brought a chilling realization.
Dark. It's coming from the light east of here, down by the light.
It felt like something was out there, watching them, following from a distance. Then they heard it. A sharp, piercing howl erupted from frighteningly close range. In that moment, panic took over, realizing they were in danger. The group sprinted back toward the house, racing through the darkness as fear closed in around them. The video ends there, leaving behind only the sound, the fear, and the question of what was really lurking outside that night. While hiking through the remote stretches of White Mesa, a hiker stumbled upon something unsettling, a trail of massive footprints pressed deep into the ground. Each print measured nearly 20 inches long, strikingly human in shape, yet far larger than any footprint known to belong to a documented individual. The tracks were clear, intact, and impossible to dismiss as natural distortions. Given White Mesa's long history of reported Bigfoot sightings, the discovery quickly fueled speculation that the footprints might belong to something far more mysterious than an ordinary passerby. This clip was posted by a Reddit user who was out camping deep in the woods when something truly unsettling caught their eye. In the shadows between the trees, a huge, hairy figure darted across the forest floor, fast, heavy, and nothing like any animal they'd seen before.
О, вон, передвигается. Чучело.
Смотри, ветки шатаются. Смотри.
О, побежал. Я заснял его.
Как не испугать его, пошли.
Я заснял.
Смотри.
Ё-моё.
Будет килограмм 200 весит.
Угу. Видел, как он своими лапами машет?
Смотри,
вон.
2 метра рост.
Ёп.
Я боюсь.
Надо отдать эту съемку в НТВ. Чрезвычайное положение.
Побежали.
Пошли за ним.
It wasn't attacking, it wasn't running toward them. It was just there, lurking, jumping between the trees as if watching from a distance. They had no idea what they were witnessing. A wild animal? Something unknown? Something not meant to be seen at all? If you were out there in the dark, miles from help, what would you think that creature was? Would you stay and film, or run for your life? A man walking alone through the night suddenly noticed movement in the bushes. What emerged made his blood run cold.
A la verga, güey, ¿qué es eso, güey? Esa mierda.
A la mierda.
A strange figure, thin and unnatural. At first glance, it resembled an elf, but the longer he stared, the more he realized it was something far more sinister, something that didn't belong in this world. What could that be? One cold winter night, a young man was heading home when traffic brought the main road to a standstill. To avoid the jam, he took a detour through Wanaharang Jampang, a quiet village infamous for its unsettling legends. The road was dark, cracked and almost deserted, so he decided to record the drive on his phone. At the time, everything seemed ordinary. But later, when he replayed the footage at home, he noticed something strange. Faint, eerie noises echoed in the background, sounds he hadn't heard while driving. He watched the video again, heart racing, and the noises were still there. Unexplained, chilling, and impossible to ignore. A team of men from the United Kingdom was making their descent down Agile du Midi, a mountain notorious for its razor-thin ridges and treacherous exposed paths. The slopes were unforgivingly steep, where even a single misstep could mean a plunge into the abyss. Suddenly one of them slipped. Instinct kicked in, and he thrust his ice axe into the snow, halting his fall by mere inches. The mountain was far steeper than it looked on camera, and the narrow ridge offered almost zero room for error. One false move here could have spelled disaster. Shaken but determined, the climbers pressed on, hearts still racing, fully aware of how narrowly they had escaped. Imagine having to carry on after flirting so closely with the edge. One cold winter evening, Alexis was startled by strange noises coming from an upstairs room, a room that should have been empty. She cautiously went to investigate, finding nothing out of place, yet an unsettling feeling clung to her. Deciding to be thorough, she set up a camera to monitor the room before returning downstairs. Later, when she reviewed the footage, her blood ran cold. After adjusting the brightness, a tall, shadowy figure slowly emerged from the closet doorway. A hand appeared, followed by part of a head. Then both vanished back into the darkness. Whatever had been in that room, it definitely wasn't supposed to be there. This group set out to explore one of America's most dangerous and adrenaline-pumping trails, Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. It's a hike known for its brutal exposure, with sheer 1,000-foot drops on both sides and a razor-thin ridge where only a chain separates hikers from empty air. It's widely considered the deadliest hike in the country, and one look at it explains why. One slip, one shaky step, one moment of fear, and it's over. Yet people still climb it, chasing the thrill, the view, the feeling of standing on the edge of the world. But would you risk your life for a moment like that? Is any view worth standing inches from death? Reddit user A Drift to Oblivion was jogging along a quiet trail at 4 AM when he suddenly froze. Up ahead, a figure loomed at the edge of the path. Its face was twisted and unnatural, something that didn't belong in this world. Heart racing, he inched closer, only to realize it was just a snowman. Yet, even knowing that, it didn't feel any less unsettling. The way it stood perfectly still, bathed in the dim Eerie. Light made the silent trail feel like a scene from a nightmare. Imagine coming across that in the dead of night.
Chilling video circulating on TikTok captures a lone hiker venturing deep into the Mojave Desert, miles away from the nearest town or roadway. The landscape stretches endlessly in every direction, dry, barren, and eerily silent. There are no footprints in the sand, no signs of wildlife, no indication that anyone else has been there for a long time. Just empty desert and stillness. That calm doesn't last. Out of nowhere, a piercing scream echoes through the open land. Startled and confused, the hiker freezes for a moment, desperately scanning the horizon. There's nothing visible, no movement, no figures, no animals, nothing that could explain the sound. The scream feels wrong, almost unnatural, as if it doesn't belong in such an empty place. Panic sets in. With no clear source of the noise and a sudden sense of danger creeping in, the hiker turns and runs. The camera shakes as fear takes over, capturing only the vast desert swallowing the sound behind him. To this day, viewers are left wondering what made the scream and why it felt so out of place in one of the most isolated regions in America. More than 100 piles of cremated human remains were discovered scattered across the desert near Searchlight, Nevada, about an hour outside Las Vegas. The shocking find was made on July 28th, and investigators later confirmed the ashes were human. What made the scene even more disturbing were the details. Many of the piles contained cable ties and fragments of urns, materials typically used by funeral homes. None of the remains had names or identifying information, leaving families untraceable and raising serious questions about how this could happen. In response, Palm mortuaries recovered roughly 30 to 115 sets of ashes and carefully placed them into individual urns, attempting to restore some dignity to the remains. Authorities now believe the ashes were illegally dumped, possibly by a funeral home, turning what should have been a respectful final process into a criminal investigation. The case remains open as officials work to uncover the truth behind this unsettling discovery. Reddit user Maria Rosie shared a chilling experience that still unsettles readers. One night, she and a friend were parked near a long-abandoned house, rumored to be a hotspot for strange activity. Curious but cautious, they stayed inside the car and began using a spirit box. Almost immediately, the device started responding, its answers unsettlingly direct, far too accurate to feel random. Then came a sharp tapping sound from the back of the car. Moments later, both of them noticed a shadow glide past the rear window. Their nerves spiked, so they snapped a photo, hoping to debunk their fear. Instead, the image revealed something far worse, a pair of glowing eyes staring back at them. They swept the area with a flashlight from every angle. Nothing. No people. No animals. Just silence. Shaken and feeling watched, they drove away without looking back. Jade was hiking across a vast, empty stretch of desert when something strange caught her eye. Sitting alone in the sand was a large, sun-bleached cooler, abandoned and completely out of place. Curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to open it. What she found made her freeze.
Dude, that might be a dead body.
Inside the cooler were bones, In remote desert areas, discoveries like that can sometimes point to serious and unsettling situations. Not wanting to take any chances, Jade contacted the non-emergency police line. A deputy soon arrived and examined the contents. After a brief inspection, he concluded the remains appeared to be animal, not human, and no further investigation followed. The story didn't end there. When the footage later circulated online, a forensic anthropologist took a closer look and confirmed the same conclusion. The bone was not human.
Hey everybody, so this is kind of like part 2 to this story. So after I found that cooler, I did call the non-emergency police line, and they did send a deputy out. He came out and took a look at it. He said he was pretty sure it was probably some kind of animal remains, not human, luckily. So they were going to have CSI come out and just take a look and then let me know if it was. I never heard anything back, so I'm assuming it's not human.
Still, the mystery of how and why the cooler ended up there remains unanswered. A group of travelers was crossing a vast desert when they captured this chilling footage. In the distance, a massive sandstorm was racing toward them, swallowing the horizon. Sandstorms are no joke. They can erase visibility in seconds, make navigation nearly impossible, and hurl debris with enough force to injure people or damage vehicles. Being caught in one without preparation can be life-threatening. The video ends without answers. Did they escape in time? Did they stay inside the car and brace for impact? What happened next remains a mystery. About a year ago, a man living in the high desert of Southern California witnessed something he still can't explain. Just after sunrise, he noticed a figure moving far beyond his property line, nearly 5 acres away. Even at that distance, one detail stood out immediately. The figure was enormous, estimated to be between 7 and 8 feet tall. Its features were impossible to make out, but it appeared male and walked with a slow, heavy, stomping gait. Curious and uneasy, the man stepped outside and lifted his phone to record. At that exact moment, the figure stopped and turned toward him. He managed to snap a photo before rushing back inside to get his wife. When they returned moments later, the figure was already retreating toward the nearby hills, disappearing into the desert landscape. The question lingered in their minds. Who or what would be wandering out there in the middle of nowhere? A cave explorer recently shared chilling footage from deep inside an unexplored cave system. At first, everything feels routine as he moves through the narrow tunnels. Then, without any warning, a sound breaks the silence. His calm quickly turns to panic. You can hear him whisper in shock before urgently saying he has to leave. What makes the moment so unsettling is that the sound doesn't resemble anything caves are known for. No dripping water, rushing air, or animal movement. Even more disturbing, nothing appears on camera. According to the explorer, the voice didn't sound like wildlife. He described it as humanoid, but not human. As the recording continues, the sound seems to grow louder and closer, as if whatever made it is approaching. Then, the footage cuts out completely. Skeptics insist the video is staged. Others believe it could be evidence that something unknown may be lurking deep within Earth's hidden cave systems. A man was staying alone in a remote cabin deep in the woods when he noticed something moving between the trees outside. Uneasy but curious, he pointed his flashlight and camera toward the darkness and recorded this.
The fuck is that?
What the fuck is that? I can't zoom in, babe. Look at that. Wait, I lost it. There it is, there it is. You see that shit right in the middle of the camera? What the fuck is that? Oh, nah. Oh, nah. Oh, nah.
The footage reveals a pale figure wedged between a tree and a fallen log. At first, it looks completely still, almost lifeless. Then, slowly, it begins to rock and rise. Terrified, he ran back into the cabin and locked himself inside. But the fear didn't end there. Days later, late at night, he noticed something watching his home, glowing eyes staring out from the darkness. When he later reviewed and enhanced the original footage, the dread only deepened. With the brightness adjusted, the figure appeared disturbingly human, with what looked like a head, shoulders, and torso. To this day, he has no explanation for what was standing outside his cabin that night. Late one night, a farmer in rural Michigan received a motion alert from a game camera tucked deep inside the forest on his land, miles from roads, homes, airports, or any known source of light. Expecting nothing more than deer passing through, he began reviewing the footage. Instead, what appeared made his stomach drop. In the pitch-black darkness, a sudden intense beam of light descended from above, illuminating the trees for only a brief moment. There were no vehicles, no people, and no visible explanation. The light appeared without warning and vanished just as quickly. Nothing else was recorded before or after the incident. No movement, no sound, no clues. The farmer was left with unanswered questions and an unsettling feeling that whatever triggered that camera was something he couldn't explain. Even years later, the footage still haunts him. Late at night, a group of friends was wandering through a quiet city park when they stumbled onto something straight out of a nightmare.
There's a fucking seance going on at this fucking park, dude. Yo, these are like lit too. What the fuck?
Oh, hell no.
Yo, they were like just fucking here.
I want to go home. I forgot my pole.
Bro. There's like an actual like meat.
No, this should kind of creepy.
What the fuck, dude?
Scattered across the ground were handwritten signs, surrounded by flickering candles and pieces of raw chicken. Everything looked freshly arranged, as if whoever had set it up had just vanished into the shadows. Not a soul was in sight.
Yo. Wait, it spells something. Bubble. Oh, wait, isn't it Bezabel or something like that?
This is kind of crazy.
Yo, and it's like they're like still lit too. Yo, I don't want to fucking be here anymore, dude. I'm not gonna lie. What the fuck?
A chill ran down their spines, unsure who had been there or why they didn't stick around to find out. They hurried away, leaving the mysterious display behind. Even now, they have no idea what dark ritual or strange prank they had witnessed that night. Do not attempt this yourself. Two friends were hiking along a narrow, wind-swept mountain ridge, the kind of trail where one wrong step could have serious consequences. The scenery was breathtaking, and one of them decided to capture it all on camera. But then, in an instant, everything changed.
Jesus Alan. I'm filming. Don't die on camera. Although that would blow up on Instagram, you know?
One hiker lost his footing. His heart raced as he teetered perilously close to the edge, the sheer drop yawning just inches away. Time seemed to slow. Every second felt like an eternity as he struggled to find his balance. With a sudden, desperate shift of weight, he managed to steady himself just in time. The relief was palpable, but the danger was very real. One small misstep could have turned this stunning hike into a disaster. It was a chilling reminder of just how unforgiving nature can be, and how quickly adventure can turn into peril. A group of kayakers was paddling near North Sentinel Island when something caught their eye along the shoreline. Curious, they edged closer and zoomed in with their camera, and what they captured left them stunned. Between the dense trees, a tall figure seemed to be standing there, moving. Slowly, deliberately, it made its way along the shore. This was strange. North Sentinel Island is off limits, and no outsiders are supposed to be there. The kayakers couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. Was it a person? Something else? Or just a clever trick of the camera? Of course, with footage like this, skepticism is natural. Many viewers are quick to wonder if it's CGI. But whatever it was unlike anything the kayakers had expected. Late one night in Mexico, a man was making his way home when something unusual caught his eye in the sky above.
Ay, no puedo, me da mucho miedo, amor.
It blinked, not once, but twice. Some say it was nothing more than a harmless projector. But what do you think it really was? This terrifying moment happened to a hiker who decided to camp when night fell, planning to rest and continue his journey in the morning. He was lying inside his tent, trying to relax, when he suddenly heard strange sounds. Outside, slow footsteps circling dangerously close. His heart started racing. His breathing grew heavy. Fighting panic, he grabbed his flashlight and slowly pointed it toward the tent opening. That's when he saw it.
Okay, they're right outside. Just go away.
A white wolf standing right outside, staring straight into the light. Frozen in fear, all he could do was pray it would leave. But instead of backing away, the wolf suddenly charged, slamming into the tent, trying to bite through the fabric. Now imagine being trapped inside, with nowhere to run, and nothing but thin fabric between you and a wild animal. What would you do in that moment? Fight back, scream, heal, or freeze completely? This disturbing moment happened one afternoon deep in the forest. As daylight faded, a hiker noticed a massive, tall tree and decided to build a small treehouse to rest for the night. It seemed like a safe idea until darkness fully settled in. Later that night, he was jolted awake by a creepy crying sound echoing through the forest.
Hey, Kaya! Kaya!
Fear hit instantly. His heart raced as he grabbed his flashlight and tried to trace where the sound was coming from. That's when he saw it. A strange creature crying at the base of the tree. He couldn't even describe what it looked like. But the moment the light touched it, everything changed. The creature stopped crying and started laughing. A sharp, unnatural laugh, like something out of a nightmare. Frozen with fear, he didn't know what to do next. Now imagine being in that tree. Would you climb down into the darkness, or stay up there until morning, hoping whatever it was eventually leaves? This chilling moment happened to a hiker who was enjoying his trip until night fell. He was still walking alone in the dark when he heard a creepy sound coming from far away. At first, he ignored it and kept moving, thinking it was nothing. Then he saw her standing ahead on the trail was a figure dressed in white. Her eyes were completely white, her hair long and black, hanging over her face. The second he realized what he was looking at, fear rushed through his body. the figure, whatever it was, began slowly walking toward him, step by step, without making a sound. His mind raced as panic set in. Every instinct told him something was very wrong. Now imagine being alone on a dark trail with that coming toward you. Would you stay frozen and wait to see what happens next? Or would you turn around and run as fast as you possibly could? This disturbing moment happened to a group of hikers who were chatting and enjoying themselves as they walked the trail. Night slowly fell, and the forest grew quiet, a little too quiet. Then suddenly, they heard a sound that stopped everyone in their tracks. Curious and confused, they decided to move toward where it was coming from. As they got closer, their blood ran cold. At the top of a tree was a female ghost, screaming, but the way she moved was completely wrong. Twisting, jerking, circling the tree in a strange, unnatural way. No one spoke. No one moved. They were frozen in fear, because they had never seen anything like it before. The forest felt heavy and silent. Then she faded away. Now imagine being there with them. Would you stay and try to understand what you're seeing, or would pure instinct take over and make you run as fast as possible? This frightening moment happened during an afternoon hike when a woman was walking alone through the forest. Everything felt normal until she suddenly heard heavy sounds coming toward her trail. Her instincts kicked in immediately, and she quietly hid between some bushes, barely daring to breathe. What she saw next made her heart stop. 3 huge bears came into view, playing and moving right along the path she had just been on. They were massive, close, and completely unaware of her presence. Fear took over her entire body. She stayed perfectly still, knowing that even the smallest sound could alert them. Seconds felt like forever as the bear slowly passed by and disappeared into the forest. Now, imagine being in her place, hidden just a few steps away from danger. Would you stay calm and frozen until they're gone? Or let panic push you into making a move you might regret? This tense moment happened during what started as a peaceful afternoon hike. A man was walking through the forest when he suddenly came across a bear standing alone. At first, fear hit him hard, but after watching the bear for a moment, it seemed calm, almost relaxed. Against his better judgment, he slowly moved closer, thinking the situation was under control. For a brief second, it felt like there was some strange, peaceful connection between them. Then everything changed.
Sometimes surprise me with their reckless behavior.
The bear suddenly roared and charged straight at him. Panic exploded instantly. Fear took over, and the man didn't hesitate. He turned and ran for his life as fast as he could. Now imagine being in that moment. Would you try to stay calm and hope the bear backs down? Or would your instincts kick in and make you run too? This scary moment happened while a woman was hiking alone on a forest trail. As she walked, she noticed a dark figure moving in the bushes ahead of her. Her heart dropped instantly. Unsure of what it was, she stopped and waited, trying to stay quiet so she could see it clearly. After a few tense seconds, the figure stepped out of the bushes and crossed the trail. That's when she realized it was a moose. Huge, silent, way too close. She immediately hid, barely daring to breathe, as the moose passed right in front of her and continued on its way. Only when it disappeared did she move again. Now imagine being in her place, alone and shaken after something like that. Would you continue hiking like nothing happened, or turn around and head back, knowing the forest just reminded you who really controls it? This creepy clip was shared by a Reddit user who thought she was in for just another calm hike along a lonely mountain trail. The afternoon was quiet, peaceful, until she noticed something that didn't feel right. Sitting on a twisted, creepy tree nearby was an owl, wide awake in broad daylight. And that's what made it unsettling. Owls aren't supposed to be active during the day. She tried to stay calm, even though panic was building inside her. The owl didn't attack or move. It just stared at her, silently, like it was watching her every move. Eventually, nothing happened, but the moment stuck with her. She later said she never wanted to experience that again in the forest. Because imagine if it had flown straight at her alone, no one around. Sometimes it's the quiet encounters that feel the most terrifying. This intense moment was shared by a Reddit user who thought he was heading out for a calm, peaceful hike through the forest. Everything felt normal until he stopped dead in his tracks. Sitting right on the trail ahead of him was a massive buffalo. It was huge, way bigger than he expected. Fear instantly filled his chest as the animal lifted its head and stared straight at him. No movement, no sound, just a silent face-off in the middle of the forest. He stayed still, trying to control his panic, knowing one wrong move could change everything. Luckily, the buffalo didn't charge. It just kept staring before eventually moving on. But imagine how differently that could have ended. Alone in the forest, with no one around to help. What if the buffalo had suddenly decided to charge? Sometimes, it only takes 1 second for a peaceful hike to turn into a nightmare. This terrifying moment was shared by a Reddit user who thought he was just enjoying another peaceful solo hike in the forest. Everything felt calm until he saw it. A massive grizzly bear walking straight toward him, completely alone on the trail. If you know anything about bears, you know they're unpredictable. On the outside, he stayed calm, but inside, panic was taking over. As the bear got closer, he knew he had only seconds to react. With shaking hands, he pulled out a can of pepper spray and sprayed it toward the bear's eyes. The bear immediately turned away and ran in the opposite direction, leaving him unharmed. But think about how close that came to disaster. What if he didn't have that spray? Alone in the forest, face to face with a grizzly. Sometimes survival comes down to a single item and a split-second decision. This terrifying moment happened to a group of men who were hiking deep in the forest. They were tired, exhausted, and relieved when they finally came across a waterfall. Seeing it as the perfect chance to cool off, they stepped into the water to freshen up. That's when everything changed.
Naik, woy! Naik! Wah, balik itu naon! Itu naon itu! Woy, naik, 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 naik! Woy, itu naon, woy! Wow, 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 wow! Itu naon, woy! Naik, woy! Naik! Wah, balik itu naon! Itu naon itu! Woy, naik, 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 naik!
One of them noticed movement near the rocks beside the waterfall. At first, he couldn't tell what it was. It looked almost human, but also reptilian. Something was off. He immediately warned the others. When they all turned to look, the figure slowly started moving out from under the rock toward them. Panic hit instantly. They were all shock and fear took over them all. Without waiting to find out what it really was, they jumped out of the water and ran for their lives. Now imagine being there with them. Would curiosity make you stay long enough to see what it was? Or would survival instinct force you to run too? This chilling moment happened to a man who went hiking and ended up still walking through the forest after nightfall. With only his flashlight lighting the way, everything felt quiet and uneasy. Then suddenly, the light caught something ahead of him. At first, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. In the distance, there appeared to be a group of figures gathered together like a meeting. Curious and confused, he slowly moved closer to confirm it. That's when he heard it. Laughter. Low, strange, and unsettling. The figures looked like witches, standing together in the darkness. Fear hit him all at once. His heart started racing, and every instinct screamed danger. Without thinking twice, he turned around and ran as fast as he could, not daring to look back. Now imagine being in his place. Would curiosity make you wait a little longer? Or would you run too? This unsettling moment happened while a woman was hiking alone at night. As she moved through the forest, she noticed an unidentifiable figure standing ahead of her. She couldn't tell what it was, but something about it felt wrong. Instead of running, she pulled out her phone and started recording. That's when it got worse. The figure seemed to realize it was being watched. Slowly, it stood up and began walking deeper into the forest. The way it moved was unnatural, stiff, awkward, almost wrong. Fear rushed through her body. On the outside, she stayed calm, but inside, panic was screaming. As she watched it disappear into the darkness, her imagination went wild. What exactly did she just see? And why did it feel aware of her? Now, imagine being there, completely alone in the dark. Would you keep recording, or would you turn around and leave immediately? Now, drop a comment with the scariest thing that's ever happened to you outdoors. And if these clips genuinely creeped you out, hit like. Subscribe too, because your story might end up in the next compilation.